you have anywhere to go?" The question came while the rain was falling outside the small train station in Bellmare, a town known for its old factories, narrow streets, and families who had lived there for generations. The woman standing near the entrance did not answer immediately. Her wedding dress was still on her body. The flowers she had carried earlier that day were lying inside a paper bag beside her feet. The train schedule board above her showed the last departure had already left. Her name was Elowen Marlowe. 3 hours earlier, she was supposed to be married. Instead, she was standing alone with no husband, no money, and no clear place to sleep that night. The man who asked the question was not a stranger who happened to pass by. His name was Cassian Veylor. Most people in Bellmare knew his name even if they had never spoken to him. Cassian was connected to the Veylor family, a group that controlled several businesses around the port. Some called them businessmen. Others called them something else when they were behind closed doors. The family had influence over shipping routes, warehouses, and protection agreements. Their reputation came from years of deals made in quiet rooms where people usually chose their words carefully. Cassian was 34 years old and had spent most of his life trying to separate himself from the decisions of the older men in his family. He wore a dark coat, carried no weapon in sight, and spoke with a calm voice. But people still moved aside when he entered a room. That night he was leaving a meeting near the station when he saw Elowen sitting alone. At first, he thought she was waiting for someone. Then he noticed the wedding dress. He saw the way she held the paper bag with the flowers. He saw the unopened letter in her hand. He saw that she was not crying or asking anyone for help. She was simply trying to decide what to do next. "Do you have anywhere to go?" he asked again. Elowen looked at him. "I don't know," she said. It was the first honest answer she had given all day. Earlier that morning, everything had looked different. The wedding was planned at St. Oran Hall, a small church near the center of town. Elowen had spent months preparing for that day. Her fiancé, Dorian Hale, came from a respected family that owned several clothing stores. Their relationship had started quietly. He was polite, hardworking, and knew how to make her believe they were building something together. Elowen was not looking for wealth. She had grown up helping her mother run a small bakery after her father passed away. She understood what it meant to work long hours and make difficult choices. When Dorian proposed, she accepted because she believed he wanted a simple life with her. But 2 weeks before the wedding, small things began to change. Dorian stopped visiting the bakery. He canceled dinners. He became careful with his words. When Elowen asked if something was wrong, he always said the same thing: "Everything is fine." She wanted to believe him. On the morning of the wedding, she arrived at the church expecting to see him waiting. He was not there. At first, everyone thought he was late. The guests sat quietly. The musicians waited. The priest checked the time several times. Then a message arrived. Dorian was not coming. There was no explanation. Only a short note delivered by one of his employees. Elowen read it twice. The message said he had made a decision and that he could not continue with the marriage. Nothing more. No conversation, no apology, no chance for her to ask why. The guests left slowly. Some looked at her with pity, others whispered. Her family wanted her to leave immediately before more people started talking. But Elowen refused to go home. Not because she was angry, because she knew she could not return to her old life pretending nothing had happened. Her mother had already sacrificed too much for her. She did not want to arrive at the bakery wearing a wedding dress and bring another problem to the woman who had spent years carrying enough responsibilities. So she walked. She walked until the streets became empty. She walked until she reached the train station. And that was where Cassian found her. "Why are you still here?" he asked. Elowen looked toward the tracks. "I was trying to think." "About what?" "About where a person goes when the place they were supposed to belong to disappears." Cassian did not respond immediately. He understood that sentence more than he wanted to admit. His own life had been built around places where people belonged because of names, agreements, and obligations, not because they chose them. He looked at the empty station. "You cannot stay here all night." "I know. Do you have family nearby?" "My mother lives across town." "Then why are you not with her?" Elowen looked down. "Because she will open the door, hug me, and tell me everything will be fine. Then tomorrow, she will worry about how to pay for everything and how to protect me from people talking." Cassian noticed something about her answer. She was not afraid of being alone. She was afraid of becoming another burden. That was something he recognized. "Come with me," he said. Elowen immediately looked at him. "No." The answer was quick. Cassian almost smiled. "You didn't even ask where." "I don't need to. You think I'm dangerous?" "I think a woman alone at night should be careful." "That is a reasonable answer." The rain became stronger. Cassian looked toward the road. "I have a guest house near my office. It is empty. You can stay there until you decide what you want to do." Elowen hesitated. "Why would you help me?" Cassian had heard that question many times, usually from people who wanted something from him. But this time it sounded different. "I don't know," he answered. It was not the perfect answer. It was simply the truth. Elowen studied him for a moment. She knew his reputation. Everyone in Bellmare knew the Veylor name. Accepting help from someone connected to that family could create new problems. But standing in a train station at night had its own risks. Finally, she picked up the bag with the flowers. "Only for one night." Cassian nodded. "Only for one night." The car ride was quiet. Bellmare passed by through the window. The old buildings near the port. The factories that worked late into the night. The streets where people knew everything about everyone. Cassian drove without speaking. Elowen looked at him several times. She expected arrogance. She expected someone who enjoyed having power over others. Instead, she saw a man who kept his eyes on the road and seemed tired. When they arrived at the guest house, Elowen noticed something unusual. The place was simple. There were no expensive decorations, no signs of someone trying to prove their importance. A small kitchen, a wooden table, a few books on a shelf. "It's smaller than I expected," she said. Cassian removed his coat. "Most people expect the wrong things from me." That sentence stayed with her. The next morning, Elowen woke up early. She had barely slept. The first thing she did was look for a way to contact her mother. Before she could leave, someone knocked on the door. It was not Cassian. It was a man named Orson Vale, one of his family's closest associates. Orson looked at Elowen, and then at the room behind her. His expression changed. "Cassian brought you here?" "Yes." "Does he know who you are?" Elowen frowned. "What does that mean?" Orson did not answer. He simply handed her a newspaper. On the front page was a story about Dorian Hale. The article mentioned financial problems, hidden debts, and questions surrounding several business agreements. Elowen read the words slowly. Her hands tightened around the paper. Dorian had not abandoned the wedding because he stopped loving her. He had disappeared because his family was facing a serious crisis. And somehow, her name had become connected to the situation. Before she could understand everything, Cassian entered the room. He looked at Orson. "What happened?" Orson pointed toward the newspaper. "She needs to know." Cassian took the paper. He read the article. Then he looked at Elowen. For the first time since they met, he seemed uncertain. Because helping a woman at a train station was one thing. Getting involved in a conflict between powerful families was something completely different. And now Elowen was standing in the middle of it, without choosing to be there. Elowen remained silent while Cassian read the newspaper. The article was short, but it contained enough information to explain why Dorian had disappeared. His family business was not doing well. Several contracts had failed. Money was missing from accounts. Creditors were asking questions. And the worst part was that Dorian Hale had signed documents connected to the problems. Elowen looked at Cassian. So he knew? Cassian placed the newspaper on the table. Most likely. He knew this was happening and still let the wedding continue? Cassian did not answer immediately. He knew the answer would hurt. Yes. Elowen looked away. For weeks, she had wondered if she had done something wrong, if she had missed a sign, if she had been too trusting. Now she understood that the silence had not been an accident. Dorian had made a choice. He had allowed her to prepare for a future that he already knew might not exist. Orson Vale crossed his arms. There is something else. Cassian looked at him. Not now. But Orson continued. Her name is on some documents. Elowen turned. What documents? Orson looked at Cassian before answering. Your wedding arrangements were connected to a financial agreement between your family and the Hales. Elowen shook her head. My family has nothing to do with their business. Not directly, Orson said. Then explain. Cassian took the paper from Orson. The Hale family wanted to strengthen their image. A marriage. With you helped them. Elowen stared at him. She understood. The wedding was not only about two people, it was also about reputation. Her family owned a small bakery, but people respected them because they were honest. Dorian's family wanted to show the town that they were stable, respected, and connected to good people. Elowen had been part of that image, not a person, a symbol. The thought was difficult to accept, but she did not break down. She simply asked, "What happens now?" Cassian looked at her. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you want to walk away or find out the truth." Elowen looked at the newspaper again. For most of her life, she had avoided conflicts. Her mother always told her that peace was valuable. But there was a difference between peace and allowing people to decide her life without her. "I want to know why he did this." Cassian nodded. "Then you need to be careful." "I already was careful." "No," he said. "You were trusting." The words were not an insult. They were a fact. And Elowen knew it. That afternoon, Cassian arranged a meeting with someone who had worked for Dorian. The meeting took place in a small cafe away from the center of town. The man's name was Merrick Solon. He had managed finances for the Hale family for almost 5 years. When he saw Elowen, he looked uncomfortable. "You should not be involved in this." Elowen sat across from him. "I was already involved when they used my name." Merrick looked at Cassian. "You brought her here? She deserves answers," Cassian replied. Merrick sighed. He opened a folder. Inside were copies of contracts, payment records, and letters. The Hale family was losing money months before the wedding. "Why hide it?" Elowen asked. "Because they believed your marriage would convince investors that everything was under control." Elowen looked at the documents. "So Dorian planned to marry me to save his reputation?" Merrick hesitated. "Dorian wanted to fix things, at least at first." "At first?" "He made some decisions without telling his father." "What decisions?" Merrick looked toward the window. "He borrowed money from people he should not have trusted." The room became quiet. Cassian knew exactly what kind of people Merrick meant. In Bellmare, there were businessmen who offered quick solutions. They gave money when banks refused. They did not ask many questions, but their agreements always had a cost. "The Veylor family?" Elowen asked. Cassian looked at her. "Why did you think of us?" "Because everyone in this town knows your name." Cassian accepted the answer. "Our family has made mistakes, but we are not responsible for every problem in Bellmare." Merrick looked at him. "Not every problem." The sentence created tension. Cassian noticed. "What are you saying?" Merrick closed the folder. "I am saying someone inside the Veylor organization knew about the Hale situation before anyone else." Cassian's expression changed. "Who?" "I don't know." "You came here to tell us that?" "I came here because I saw what happened to Miss Marlowe. She was used by people who thought they were smarter than everyone else." Elowen looked at him. "Why help me?" Merrick gave a tired smile. "Because I spent years helping people hide mistakes. I finally realized silence does not protect anyone." After the meeting, Cassian and Elowen walked back to the car. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Elowen asked, "Is it true?" "What?" "That your family is involved?" Cassian, kept walking. "I don't know." "You are telling me you don't know what your own family does?" "I know enough to understand that some people around me hide things." That answer bothered her. "You have power, Cassian. You can find out." "Yes." "Then why do you sound like you don't want to?" He stopped. Because she had noticed something. Cassian had spent years trying to keep distance from the darker side of his family. He managed businesses. He negotiated contracts. He solved problems. But he avoided asking certain questions because answers created responsibilities, and responsibilities forced choices. "I spent my life trying to prove I was different from them," he said. Elowen waited. "Sometimes I wonder if avoiding the truth makes me any better." That was the first time she saw something beyond his reputation. Not weakness, a conflict. That night, Cassian received a visit from his uncle, Alistair Veylor. Alistair was one of the oldest members of the family. He was respected and feared. He entered the office without waiting for permission. "I heard you brought Dorian Hale's abandoned bride into your house." Cassian did not look surprised. "You are keeping track of my guests now?" "I keep track of problems." "She is not a problem." Alistair placed a folder on the desk. "Everything connected to the Hale family is dangerous." Cassian opened the folder. Inside were reports about Dorian's debts. "You knew." "I knew enough." "You knew before the wedding?" "Yes." Cassian looked at him. "And you said nothing?" Alistair remained calm. "Because it was not our business. That is not the truth." "No. You wanted the marriage to happen." Alistair did not deny it. The Hale family was useful. Cassian closed the folder. "And Elowen?" Alistair looked at him. "Collateral." The word stayed in the room. Cassian had heard worse things in his life, but hearing someone describe a person that way made something change. "She is not a document," Cassian said. "She is a woman, connected to a failed agreement." "No." Cassian stood. "She is someone who was lied to." Alistair studied him. "You are becoming emotional." "No. I am becoming aware." The older man walked toward the door. "Be careful, Cassian. People who try to fix everything usually lose something." After he left, Cassian stayed alone in his office. For years, he had believed control was the most important thing. Control over business, control over reputation, control over emotions. But now a woman he barely knew had forced him to question something he avoided for years. What was the value of power if it was only used to protect yourself? Meanwhile, Elowen sat in the guest house reading the documents again. She knew returning home would be easier. She knew disappearing would avoid attention. But she also knew something else. If she left without understanding what happened, other people would continue deciding her story. The next morning, she made a decision. She would meet Dorian, not to ask him to come back, not to forgive him, only to hear the truth from him directly. And Cassian agreed to take her. But neither of them knew that Dorian was not the only person waiting for that meeting. Someone else had been watching the situation from the beginning. Someone who did not want Elowen asking questions. The meeting with Dorian Hale was arranged for the following afternoon. Cassian chose a quiet restaurant outside the center of Bellmare. It was not a place where wealthy families usually met. There were no private rooms, no important guests, just small tables, old wooden chairs, and people who came there because they wanted to eat without being noticed. Elowen arrived with Cassian. She did not wear the wedding dress anymore. She had borrowed simple clothes from the guest house and tied her hair back. For the first time in days, she looked like herself. Not someone's future wife, not someone's family connection, just Elowen. Dorian was already sitting at a table near the window. When he saw her, he stood. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The man who had promised to spend his life with her now looked like someone she barely recognized. "You came," he said. Elowen sat down. "I wanted answers." Dorian looked at Cassian. "I did not expect you to bring him." "She did not come here alone," Cassian replied. Dorian lowered his eyes. He understood. The situation had changed. Before, he had controlled the information. Now, he had to explain. Elowen placed her hands on the table. "Why?" Dorian looked at her. "I was trying to protect you." The answer did not convince her. "No, you were trying to protect yourself." Dorian stayed silent. That silence told her enough. "You knew your family was in trouble." "Yes." "You knew before the wedding." "Yes." "And you still let me stand there waiting for you." Dorian looked down. "I thought I could solve it." "With what?" "My father had connections. I thought I could find another investor." "But you didn't." "No." "And when you realized you couldn't fix it, you left." Dorian took a deep breath. "I was ashamed." Elowen looked at him. "Shame does not excuse what you did." "I know." It was the first honest thing he had said. Dorian explained that months earlier, his father's company started losing important contracts. Instead of reducing expenses and accepting the losses, his family tried to maintain the appearance that everything was normal. They borrowed money. They made promises they could not keep. And Dorian became part of it. He signed papers believing he was saving his family. But every decision created a bigger problem. "I thought if I married you, people would believe the company was stable," he admitted. Elowen felt the weight of those words, not because she still loved him, because she finally understood how easily someone could turn another person into a solution. "You never saw me as a partner." Dorian looked at her. "That is not true." "Then what was I?" He did not answer. And that was the answer. Cassian watched quietly. He had seen people lie to protect themselves. But Dorian's biggest mistake was not the debt. It was believing that his intentions mattered more than the damage he caused. After a few minutes, Elowen stood. "I hope you solve your problems." Dorian looked surprised. "You are not angry." "I am." "Then why say that?" "Because I do not want your failure to become my life." She walked away. Outside the restaurant, the air was cold. Cassian followed. You handled that better than most people would. Elowen looked at him. I wanted him to feel guilty. Did he? I don't know. She paused. But I realized something. What? I spent days asking why he left me. I should have been asking why I accepted so many excuses before that. Cassian did not respond. Because he knew the feeling. People often searched for the moment everything went wrong. But sometimes the important question was why they ignored the smaller signs before. That evening, Cassian received another message from Merrick Solon. There was a problem. Someone had entered his office and stolen copies of the financial documents. The police were called, but nothing valuable was taken. Only the files connected to the Hale family. Cassian immediately understood. Someone was not trying to steal money. Someone was trying to hide information. When he arrived, Orson Vale was already there. The timing is too specific, Orson said. Cassian looked around the office. Who had access? Several people. Names. Orson hesitated. Cassian noticed. Tell me. There is someone you should speak with. Who? Orson looked uncomfortable. Your cousin, Lucien Veylor. Cassian's expression changed. Lucien was younger than him. They grew up together. For years, Cassian considered him family before anything else. But Lucien had always wanted more influence, more control, more recognition. He knew about the Hales. He knew about their situation. Why? Orson looked at him. Because he was one of the people lending the money. Cassian felt anger rise. Not because Lucien had made a bad deal. Because he had done it secretly. The Veylor family had rules. Even if those rules were not always moral, they existed. Lucien had crossed a line. That night, Cassian confronted him. The meeting happened at an old warehouse near the port, a place the Veylor family used for business discussions. Lucien arrived late. He smiled when he saw Cassian. I heard you are investigating me. I heard you are making decisions that affect everyone. Lucien laughed. Everyone? Or you? Cassian did not react. Why did you lend money to Dorian? Because he needed it. That is not an answer. Lucien walked closer. You always wanted to be different from us. You built your own office, your own reputation. You thought you were above family problems. And you think creating problems makes you important? Lucien's smile disappeared. I think power belongs to people who take it. Cassian looked at him. That is why you failed. Lucien frowned. You think you're better? No. Cassian paused. I think people who only understand power eventually lose the ability to understand people. The conversation ended without a confession. But Cassian now knew enough. Lucien had been connected to Dorian's downfall. The question was why. The answer came the next morning. Elowen received a letter. No name. No address. Only a short message. Stop searching for answers that can hurt you. She read it twice. Then she showed it to Cassian. His reaction was immediate. This was delivered here? Yes. Who else saw it? No one. Cassian looked at the letter. For the first time, the situation was no longer only about business. Someone was trying to intimidate her, and that changed everything. Elowen noticed his expression. What are you thinking? That you should leave Bellmare for a while? She shook her head. No. Elowen. No. Cassian looked at her. You do not know what these people are capable of. And you do? The question stopped him. She continued. I came here because someone destroyed my plans. I stayed because I wanted the truth. I am not going to disappear because someone wants me afraid. Cassian understood something. Elowen was not staying because she wanted revenge. She was staying because she wanted control over her own life. That was different. Later that day, Cassian made a decision. He would investigate Lucien, but he would also protect Elowen. Not because she was connected to the Hale family. Not because she was part of a business agreement. Because she was a person who had been treated like an object. And that was something he could no longer ignore. However, before he could begin, he received a message from an unknown number. Only one sentence appeared on the screen. Ask Elowen what her father left behind. Cassian looked at the message. He knew something was missing. Something about Elowen's past. Something even she did not know. Cassian did not show Elowen the message immediately. He read it several times. Ask Elowen what her father left behind. It was a simple sentence, but it changed the direction of the investigation. Until that moment, everything had been connected to Dorian Hale, his family's debts, and the hidden agreements between powerful people in Bellmare. Now there was another question. Why was someone bringing up Elowen's father? Her father, Tobias Marlowe, had died 15 years earlier. He was not a businessman. He did not belong to wealthy families. He had spent most of his life repairing old machines in factories near the port. People remembered him as a quiet man who worked with his hands and rarely involved himself in other people's conflicts. At least, that was what Elowen believed. Cassian found her in the guest house kitchen organizing documents. She had created small piles, one for Dorian, one for the Hale family, one for anything connected to her. "You look like someone who has bad news," she said. Cassian placed the phone on the table. She read the message. Her expression changed. "What does this mean? I was hoping you could tell me." Elowen sat down. "My father? Did he ever mention anything unusual before he died?" She thought for a moment. "No. Any business problems? People visiting him? Arguments?" Elowen looked at the floor. There was one thing. "What? When I was younger, he told my mother never to trust people who offered easy solutions." Cassian waited. "That sounds normal." "It was the way he said it." "How? Like he was warning her about something?" Cassian leaned back. "Did you ask him?" "I tried. And? He told me some things were better left in the past." That sentence stayed between them. Cassian knew people often hid information for two reasons: because they were protecting someone, or because they were protecting themselves. He needed to know which one applied to Tobias Marlowe. They visited Elowen's mother that afternoon. Her name was Rosalie Marlowe. She lived above the bakery where she had worked for almost 30 years. The place smelled like bread and cinnamon. It was simple. A few tables, old shelves, a small counter near the window. Nothing about the place suggested that anyone connected to powerful families would care about it. When Rosalie saw Cassian, she became cautious. "Elowen," her daughter understood immediately. "This is not what you think. I know who he is." Cassian did not react. He was used to people judging him because of his family name. Rosalie looked at him carefully. "I know what the Veylors are," Cassian answered calmly. "And I know what people say about my family." "Then you understand why I worry." Elowen stepped between them. "Mother," Cassian helped me. Rosalie looked surprised. "Why?" Neither Elowen nor Cassian had a good answer. Because the truth was complicated. He helped her at the station. Then he continued helping because he believed it was right. But explaining that was difficult. Rosalie noticed. She did not push. Instead, she went to an old cabinet and removed a small wooden box. "I hoped I would never need to open this." Elowen looked at it. "What is it?" "Something your father left." She opened the box. Inside were several letters, an old photograph, and a small notebook. Elowen touched the notebook. "My father wrote this?" "Yes." "Why didn't you show me?" "Because he asked me not to." Cassian looked at Rosalie. "When did he leave it?" 2 months before he died." Elowen looked confused. "Why?" Rosalie sat down. "Because he knew someone might come looking for it." The room became quiet. Cassian understood. Tobias Marlowe had known something. The question was what? Elowen opened the notebook. Most pages contained notes about factory repairs, payments, and names. At first it looked ordinary. Then Cassian noticed something. A pattern. Several names appeared repeatedly. One of them was familiar. Hale. Another one was familiar too. Veylor. Elowen looked at him. "My father knew your family?" "Apparently." She continued reading. The notebook showed that Tobias had worked years earlier on equipment used in several port warehouses. Some of those warehouses belonged to companies connected to the Veylors, but he also recorded something else. He noticed unusual financial movements, money entering and leaving businesses without clear explanations. At first, he ignored it. Then he realized some employees were being blamed for problems they did not create. Tobias began keeping records, not because he wanted power, because he believed people deserved to know the truth. Cassian looked at the pages. He was investigating. Why? Because he found something wrong. Elowen looked at the notebook. "My father was just a mechanic." Cassian shook his head. "That does not mean he was not paying attention." For years, Cassian had seen people underestimate others because of their position. A wealthy person was considered intelligent. A worker was considered invisible. But Tobias, had noticed what many powerful people ignored: the consequences of their decisions. That evening, Cassian returned to his office with copies of the notebook. He needed answers. But before he could begin, Alistair Veylor arrived again. This time, he looked more serious. "You found the notebook?" Cassian looked at him. "You knew about it. I knew your father had something." "My father?" Alistair paused. Cassian immediately noticed. "What does my father have to do with this?" The question changed. The conversation. Cassian's father had died when he was young. Very little was ever discussed about him, especially not his business connections. Alistair sat down. "There are things you were not told." Cassian's voice became colder. "Apparently, that happens often in this family." Alistair ignored the comment. "Your father and Tobias Marlowe worked together." "Doing what?" "Trying to expose a group of people who were using businesses as a way to hide illegal agreements." Cassian looked at the notebook. "And what happened?" Alistair remained silent. That silence was enough. "My father was killed?" "No." "Then tell me." "He disappeared from the business world after realizing he could not trust the people around him." Cassian stood. "All these years you let me believe he simply left. You were young. I was old enough to deserve the truth." Alistair looked away. For once he had no argument. Meanwhile, Elowen returned to the bakery. She needed time away from the investigation. She needed to think. Her entire understanding of her family had changed in one day. Her father was not only the quiet man she remembered, he had taken risks because he believed something was wrong. And now she understood something important. The reason she felt betrayed by Dorian was not only because he abandoned her, it was because he treated trust as something disposable. Her father had done the opposite. He protected the truth even when it created problems. That night, Cassian visited the bakery. He found Elowen cleaning tables. "You should rest." "So should you." He almost smiled. "I'm not good at that." "I noticed." They stood quietly for a moment. Then Elowen asked, "What are you going to do?" Cassian looked at the notebook in his hand. "I am going to find out who tried to hide this." "And then?" "I don't know." That answer surprised her. A man like Cassian was expected to have a plan for everything, but he admitted when he did not. Maybe that was why she trusted him. Not because he had power, because he was willing to admit when he was uncertain. Before leaving, Cassian received another message. This time there was no warning, only a name: Cassian Veylor, and beneath it, one sentence: "He knows why your father disappeared?" Cassian looked at Elowen. The investigation was no longer about saving reputations. It was about uncovering a truth that several people had spent years hiding, and the person with the answers might be the same person who had been creating problems from the beginning. Cassian did not confront Lucian immediately. He knew his cousin well enough to understand that direct accusations would only make him more careful. Lucian was not the type of person who admitted mistakes when pressured. He searched for weaknesses. He waited for people to react. Then he used those reactions to his advantage. So Cassian decided to do something different. He watched. For 3 days, he followed the movement of money connected to the Hale family. He reviewed old agreements. He spoke with people who had worked in the warehouses near the port. Slowly, a pattern appeared. Lucien had not simply lent money to Dorian. He had created a situation where the Hale family became dependent on him. When Dorian could not repay the debt, Lucien gained control over several of the family's business decisions. It was not illegal on paper, but it was intentional. Cassian understood why Dorian had been desperate. His mistake was trusting people who offered help without explaining the cost. The same thing Tobias Marlowe had warned about years earlier. Easy solutions, hidden consequences. Meanwhile, Elowen returned to her normal routine at the bakery. She wanted to prove something to herself. The situation had changed her, but she did not want it to control her. Every morning, she opened the doors. She served customers. She cleaned tables. She worked beside her mother. Some people in town still whispered. They talked about the broken wedding. They talked about Cassian. They talked about the Veylor family. But Elowen stopped trying to control what everyone thought. She had spent too much time worrying about other people's opinions. One afternoon, a woman named Maura Bell came into the bakery. She was older and had worked for the Hale family for years. Elowen recognized her immediately. "Can I speak with you?" Elowen nodded. They sat at a table near the window. Maura looked nervous. "I should have come sooner, About what? About Dorian. Elowen waited. I knew he was planning something before the wedding. The words surprised her. What did you know? I heard him arguing with his father. When? 2 days before the ceremony? Elowen looked at her. Why didn't you tell me? Mora looked down. Because I was afraid. Of what? The Hale family. The Veylors. Everyone involved. Elowen understood. Fear had kept many people silent, including her, not because they were weak, because sometimes people calculated the risk of speaking. Mora continued. Dorian wanted to cancel the wedding. Elowen became still. He wanted to? Yes. Then why didn't he? Because his father convinced him that the marriage was their only chance. Elowen closed her eyes for a moment. Another piece of the story. Dorian had not only hidden the problem, he had been trapped by his own family. But that did not erase his choices. He still left me there. Mora nodded. I know. Why are you telling me now? Because I saw what happened to your father. Elowen looked at her. What do you mean? Mora lowered her voice. Your father was not the only person who noticed problems at the port. The bakery became quiet. What happened to him? I don't know everything. Tell me what you know. Mora looked toward the door before speaking. Years ago, your father discovered that some shipments were being recorded differently from what was actually happening. Cassian had already suspected something similar, but hearing another person confirm it changed the weight of the information. What kind of shipments? I don't know. Then why did he disappear? Because he told someone he trusted. Who? Mora hesitated. Then she said, someone from the Veylor family. Elowen felt her stomach tighten. Who? Mora looked at her. Alistair. The name changed everything. That night, Elowen told Cassian what Mora had said. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he remained quiet. You believe her? Yes. Why? Because she was afraid to tell me. Cassian looked at the table. That usually means someone has something to hide. You think Alistair hurt my father? Cassian answered carefully. I think Alistair knows more than he has told me. That was enough. Elowen noticed something. You are disappointed. Cassian looked at her. In him? In your family. He did not deny it. For years, Cassian had accepted certain things because they were normal in his world. People making secret deals. People hiding information. People protecting the family name. But now he saw the cost. Every hidden decision affected real people. Tobias, Elowen, even Dorian. The following morning, Cassian met Lucian at the warehouse. This time, he did not come alone. Orson was with him. Lucian noticed. You brought a witness? I brought someone who understands the situation. Lucian laughed. You still think this is about right and wrong? Cassian looked at him. No, I think this is about consequences. Lucian walked around the warehouse. Do you know what your problem is? Cassian waited. You think being honorable makes you different. And what makes you different? I am willing to do what others refuse. That is what everyone says when they justify bad choices. Lucian stopped. For the first time, his confidence disappeared. Cassian placed documents on a table. These records connect you to the Hale debt. Lucian looked at them. You searched my accounts. I searched the truth. Lucian smiled slightly. You sound like Tobias. The name caught Cassian's attention. You knew him. Yes. Tell me what happened. Lucian looked away. I was young. That is not an answer. No, it is a reason. Cassian waited. Lucian finally spoke. Your father and Tobias discovered something that could destroy several people. What? A network of agreements between families and companies. People moving money through businesses that looked legitimate. And you were involved? Lucian did not answer. That silence was enough. You helped hide it. I helped protect my family. Cassian shook his head. By destroying others? Lucian looked at him. You think people like us survive by being innocent? No. Cassian paused. We survive by deciding what kind of people we want to be. Lucian laughed. You really believe that? Yes. Then you are going to lose. Maybe Lucian believed that. Maybe he thought power always defeated honesty. But Cassian had learned something from Elowen. Strength was not always about controlling others. Sometimes it was about refusing to become someone you hated. Before leaving, Lucian gave Cassian one final piece of information. Your father did not disappear because of what he found. Cassian turned. Then why? Because of what he refused to do. What? Lucian looked at him. He refused to sign an agreement that would protect everyone else. And him? He chose the consequences. Cassian left the warehouse with more questions than answers. That evening, Elowen received another visitor, Dorian. This time he came alone. I need to tell you something. She looked at him. I am listening. Dorian took a deep breath. The reason I left was not only because of my family's problems. Elowen waited. I found out someone was using my debt to force me into a deal. Who? Dorian looked toward the street. Cassian Veylor. The name confirmed what they already suspected. But Dorian continued. He wanted me to marry you because your father's old records could be connected to the same people. Elowen froze. My father? Yes. Why would my father's records matter now? Dorian looked at her. Because they contain evidence. Evidence of what? Dorian lowered his voice. Evidence that could bring powerful people down. For years, Elowen thought her biggest problem was a broken engagement. Now she understood something else. The wedding had never been the center of the story. It was only the moment when hidden problems finally reached her life. And the truth, her father left behind, could change everything. Dorian's confession changed the situation. Until that moment, Elowen believed the wedding had failed because one man made a selfish decision. Now she understood there were several people moving pieces around her life. The marriage, the business agreements, her father's old records, all of them were connected. But one thing still bothered her. Why are you telling me this now? Dorian looked at her. Because I finally understand what I did. That is not enough. I know. Elowen crossed her arms. You let me stand in that church alone. Yes. You let people talk about me. Yes. You waited until you needed my help to tell me the truth. Dorian lowered his eyes. Yes. The honesty was uncomfortable. But it was better than another excuse. I cannot change what I did, he said. But I can stop making it worse. Elowen looked at him. Are you asking me to help you? No. The answer surprised her. I am warning you. Why? Because Lucian is not afraid of losing money. He is afraid of losing control. Dorian explained that after the wedding was cancelled, Lucian had pressured him to leave Bellmare. He wanted the Hale family to disappear quietly. No questions, no investigations, no attention. But Dorian had started to realize something. The people who promised to save him were the same people who created his problem. That was the mistake he had made. He confused assistance with loyalty. Cassian listened carefully when Elowen told him about the conversation. He is telling the truth, Cassian said. You believe him? I believe he knows something. That is not the same. No. Cassian looked at the notebook from Tobias. But it may be enough. The next step was finding the missing pages. The notebook was incomplete. Several sections had been removed. Someone had taken them before Rosalie gave it to Elowen. Cassian suspected Lucian. But suspicion was not proof. They needed evidence. With Orson's help, Cassian searched old business archives connected to the port. They found records from 15 years earlier. One document caught their attention. It was a list of warehouse inspections. Tobias Marlowe's name appeared several times. But next to his name was another signature. Cassian's father. The two men had been working together. Not against each other. Together. For the first time, Cassian saw a different version of his own family. A version that existed before fear and ambition took over. He brought the documents to Elowen. She read them slowly. My father trusted your father? Yes. Then why did everyone hide this? Cassian looked at the papers. Because people often protect their image before they protect the truth. Elowen nodded. She had experienced that herself. Dorian protected his family's reputation. The Hales protected their business. The Veylors protected their influence. Everyone wanted to avoid shame, but someone always paid the price. That evening, Alistair requested a meeting. Cassian almost refused, but he knew avoiding him would not solve anything. They met at an old office near the harbor. Alistair looked older than before, not physically, in his expression. You found the documents? Yes. You understand now? I understand that you lied. Alistair accepted the accusation. I made choices. Choices that affected innocent people. Yes. Cassian was surprised by the answer. He expected denial, not acceptance. Why? Alistair looked toward the window. When your father and Tobias discovered what was happening, they wanted to expose everyone involved. And they were right. The admission surprised Cassian. But Alistair remained quiet for a moment. But I was afraid. Cassian listened. I had spent my entire life protecting the family. I believed that if the truth came out, everyone would lose everything. So you buried it? Yes. And my father? He walked away. Because of you? Alistair looked at him. Because of all of us. That answer was painful. Because it was true. No single person created the problem. Many people made small decisions that allowed it to continue. Cassian understood something important. Bad situations did not always begin with one terrible act. Sometimes they grew because many people chose silence. What happened to the missing pages? Alistair looked at him. Lucien has them. Why? Because he believes they can give him control over everyone involved. Cassian stood. Then he is going to use them. Yes. When? Soon. The answer was confirmed that same night. Lucien contacted Cassian. He wanted a meeting. Not at a warehouse. Not at an office. At a private club where powerful people often met. Cassian went alone. Elowen wanted to come. He refused. This is not your fight. She looked at him. You still think that? Cassian stopped. She continued. My father's work. My family's name. My future. How is this not my fight? He had no answer. So she came. Inside the club, Lucien was waiting. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. You brought her. She deserves to hear. Lucien smiled. Everyone thinks they deserve the truth. They rarely understand the price. He placed a folder on the table. Inside were the missing pages from Tobias's notebook. Elowen immediately recognized her father's handwriting. What do you want? Lucien looked at Cassian. I want what I was denied. Power? Respect? Cassian shook his head. You had opportunities. I had a family that valued obedience more than ability. You think destroying people proves your ability? Lucien leaned forward. I think winning proves everything. Elowen looked at him. And if winning means hurting people who did nothing wrong? Lucien looked at her. You are exactly like your father. The words caught her attention. What does that mean? He believed people mattered more than results. And you think he was wrong? Yes. Why? Because he lost. The room became silent. Lucien believed the only lesson from Tobias's story was failure. But Elowen saw something different. Her father had lost comfort. He had lost security. But he had not lost himself. That was something Lucien could not understand. The conversation ended when Lucien made his offer. He would return the documents. He would leave Dorian's family alone. He would stop investigating Cassian. But only if Cassian accepted one condition. He had to take control of the Veylor organization and continue doing business the old way. No changes, no questions, no challenges. Cassian looked at the folder, then at Elowen. Years earlier, he would have considered the offer. Power, influence, control, everything his family valued. But now he thought about Tobias, about his father, about Elowen standing alone at the train station. People who had no power but still chose what was right. No. Lucien looked surprised. You are refusing? Yes. You know what happens if you do? Yes. You lose everything. Cassian answered calmly. Maybe. He looked at Elowen. But I stop losing myself. Lucien did not expect that answer. For the first time, he had no immediate response. They left the club with only one thing certain. The conflict was no longer about hiding the past. It was about deciding what kind of future they wanted. But before they reached the car, Elowen noticed something. The folder Lucien gave them was not complete. One page was missing, the most important one, and whoever had it still had the power to expose everyone. The missing page became the last piece of the puzzle. Cassian and Elowen returned to the guest house and reviewed every document again. The folder Lucien gave them contained enough information to expose several agreements, but the final page was missing. Without it, they could prove that something wrong happened, but they could not prove who ordered it. For Lucien, that page was protection. For Cassian, it was the difference between revenge and justice. We need to find it, Elowen said. Cassian looked at her. You understand what happens if we continue? Yes. You could lose your peace. She looked at the notebook. My father already lost his because he chose the truth. She paused. I do not want to spend my life wondering if I should have done the same. That answer reminded Cassian why he had started helping her. Not because she needed someone to save her, because she had the courage to make her own choices. They began searching for the missing page. The first person they contacted was Merrick Solon. He had worked with the Hale family and understood how financial documents were organized. When he saw what was missing, his expression changed. You know where it is? I have an idea, he said. Where? Merrick explained that Tobias Marlowe had a habit of hiding important information in places where nobody would think to look. Not because he wanted secrets, because he knew papers could disappear. Your father trusted objects more than people, Merrick said. Elowen thought about that. Then she remembered something. A small wooden cabinet in the bakery basement. Her father used to repair old machines there. After his death, her mother never touched it. They returned to the bakery that same night. Rosalie was surprised to see them. When Elowen explained what they were looking for, her mother became quiet. I always wondered why your father kept that cabinet locked. Did you ever open it? No. Why? Because he asked me not to. Again, the same pattern. People had respected Tobias, because he earned their trust, even when they did not understand his decisions. Cassian helped them move the old cabinet. Behind a wooden panel, they found a small envelope. Inside was the missing page. Elowen opened it carefully. The handwriting was her father's. The page explained everything. Years earlier, Tobias and Cassian's father discovered that several people were using businesses around the port to hide illegal financial agreements. But Tobias also wrote something else. He wrote that exposing the truth without preparing innocent people could destroy lives. He wanted evidence, not chaos. He believed justice required patience. At the bottom of the page was a sentence that made Elowen stop. Power without responsibility always creates victims. Cassian read the words. They were simple, but they explained everything that had happened. Dorian wanted to protect his family. Lucienne wanted control. Alistair wanted stability. All of them believed their reasons were enough, but they forgot the people affected by their decisions. The next day, Cassian presented the evidence. Not to the public first, not to the newspapers. He went to the authorities with complete records, names, documents, dates, connections. He knew there would be consequences. For his family, for himself. But hiding the truth would only continue the same cycle. The investigation lasted months. Several business agreements were reviewed. People involved had to answer questions. Some lost their positions. Some had to admit mistakes they had avoided for years. Lucien tried to defend himself. He claimed he was protecting the family, but the evidence showed something different. He had used fear and information to gain influence. Alistair cooperated with the investigation. He admitted that his silence allowed problems to grow. It did not erase what happened, but it was the first honest decision he had made in years. Dorian also faced consequences. The Hale family business could not continue as before. Some properties were sold. Some employees lost their jobs. But Dorian chose not to run. He stayed and helped rebuild what he could, not because it would restore his reputation, because he finally understood responsibility. Months later, Bellmare began changing. Not dramatically, not overnight. Real changes usually happen slowly. The port continued working. The bakery remained open. Families continued living their lives. But people started talking about the situation differently, not as a story about powerful families, as a story about choices. Cassian left the Veylor organization. Many people thought he would regret it. He lost influence. He lost access to certain circles. But he gained something he had never had. A life built by his own decisions. He opened a smaller company focused on honest shipping agreements. It was not as large as the Veylor empire, but every contract had clear terms. No hidden conditions, no pressure, no promises that could destroy people later. Elowen continued working at the bakery. She did not become wealthy. She did not become someone famous. She simply rebuilt her life, and that was enough. A year after the broken wedding, Cassian visited the bakery one morning. Elowen was arranging bread on the counter. You are early. I know. That usually means something happened. He smiled. Not everything has to be a problem. She looked at him. That is new for you. They laughed. Their relationship did not begin with a perfect moment. It began with a difficult situation. Two people who had been disappointed by others. Two people who learned that trust was not created by promises. It was created by actions. Cassian never forgot the night he found Elowen at the train station, a woman in a wedding dress with nowhere to go. At that moment, he thought he was offering her shelter. Years later, he understood something different. She had given him something too. She showed him that a person's value was not measured by their family name, their money, or their influence. It was measured by the choices they made when nobody was forcing them to do the right thing. The story of Elowen and Cassian remained in Bellmare for years, not because they defeated powerful people, not because they became important, but because they proved something simple. A person can inherit a name. A person can inherit wealth. A person can inherit influence. But character is something that, if you are enjoying this story, take a moment to tell us what you think in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Elowen's position? Would you search for the truth or choose to walk away? Don't forget to subscribe to Wildwood Hearts, leave a like on this video, and share this story with someone who enjoys stories about love, choices, and life lessons. Your support helps us continue creating more stories that bring reflection, emotion, and meaningful messages. You must be chosen. And sometimes, the most important decision in life is not about what you gain. It is about what you refuse to become. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If this story left you with something to think about, remember this lesson. The choices we make when we have power reveal who we truly are, but the choices we make when we have nothing reveal what we are made of. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Wildwood Hearts, leave a like, share this video with someone who enjoys meaningful stories, and tell us in the comments what you learned from Elowen and Cassian's journey. Your support helps us continue bringing stories about love, difficult choices, and the lessons that stay with us.